The Bar Kokhba revolt didn't just happen out of the blue. It was the culmination of years of tension, frustration, and simmering anger. It was like a pot simmering on the stove for decades, about to boil over. The heat had been turned up gradually, and the pressure was mounting. The Romans and the Jewish people in Judea had been clashing for a long time. The cultural and religious differences were stark, and the Romans' heavy-handed approach only made things worse. Ever since the Roman general Pompey took over Judea in 63 BCE, things hadn't been peaceful. The Jewish people had their own way of life, their own traditions, and their own beliefs, which often clashed with Roman customs and laws. Roman rule, while keeping things somewhat orderly, was often harsh and didn't respect Jewish traditions and beliefs. The Romans imposed their own laws and taxes, disregarding the local customs and religious practices. When the Romans destroyed the Second Temple in 70 CE during the First Jewish-Roman War, it was a terrible tragedy for the Jewish people. The temple was the center of their religious life, and its destruction was a devastating blow. This event made them even angrier at the Romans. The loss of the temple was not just a physical loss, but a spiritual and cultural one, deepening the resentment and anger towards Roman rule. The Romans also made it hard for Jewish people to practice their religion, charged them heavy taxes, and had a large army always present, making life difficult. The constant military presence was a daily reminder of their subjugation. Then the Romans built a city called Aelia Capitolina, and that was the last straw. This new city was built on the ruins of Jerusalem, and it was a clear sign that the Romans intended to erase Jewish identity and heritage. The anger and frustration that had been building up for so long were about to explode. The Jewish people could no longer tolerate the oppression and disrespect. The seeds of rebellion had been sown, and the Bar Kokhba revolt was the inevitable outcome of years of suffering and resistance. We know why the Bar Kokhba revolt happened, but historians still argue about what exactly started it. Some say it was Hadrian's ban on circumcision, a very important Jewish tradition. Others think it was the emperor's plan to put a statue of himself on the Temple Mount, a sacred place for Jews, which the Romans had already put a temple to Jupiter on. Whatever the reason, in 132 CE, the Jewish people revolted against Roman rule. It started in Modi'in, a town near Jerusalem, and quickly spread everywhere. The Jewish rebels, though not well equipped at first, fought fiercely for their freedom and faith, surprising the powerful Roman army. But leading this Jewish uprising was a mysterious but inspiring man named Simon bar Kokhba, later known as Simon bar Kokhba, meaning son of the star. No one knows exactly where he came from, but he became the leader of the rebellion, uniting different groups of rebels. Bar Kokhba was more than just a general. Many believed he was the Messiah, sent by God to free the Jewish people from Roman rule. A very important Jewish teacher, Rabbi Akiva, supported Bar Kokhba, which made many people believe in him even more. With Rabbi Akiva's support, the rebellion became a fight for freedom and a spiritual awakening. The rebels, led by Bar Kokhba, did something amazing. They created an independent Jewish state, the first since the Second Temple was destroyed. This was a monumental achievement, considering the immense power and reach of the Roman Empire at the time. Bar Kokhba's leadership and vision inspired many Jews to join the cause, hoping to reclaim their homeland and restore their cultural and religious identity. It didn't last long, but it was a huge accomplishment. The state managed to survive for about 3 years, from 132 to 135 CE. During this brief period, the Jewish people experienced a sense of autonomy and self-governance that had been absent for centuries. They rebuilt their communities, re-established their traditions, and lived with a renewed sense of hope and purpose. For a short time, the dream of a free Judea seemed possible. The landscape of Judea, with its rugged terrain and ancient cities, became a symbol of resilience and determination. The Jewish settlers worked tirelessly to fortify their settlements and defend their newfound freedom against the ever-present threat of Roman retaliation. Bar Kokhba, now called Nasi, or Prince, set up a government, made his own coins with Jewish symbols, and trained the rebel army. These coins, inscribed with Hebrew letters and Jewish symbols, were a powerful statement of independence and cultural pride. The rebel army, though vastly outnumbered, was highly motivated and well organized. ready to defend their state at all costs. He knew they needed to be organized to fight the Romans. The Roman military was one of the most formidable forces in the world, and Bar Kokhba understood that only through discipline and strategic planning could they hope to stand a chance. The Jewish rebels trained rigorously, preparing for the inevitable clashes with the Roman legions. Archaeologists have found Bar Kokhba's coins and letters, which show us what life was like in this short-lived Jewish state. These artifacts provide a glimpse into the daily lives of the people, their struggles, and their aspirations. The letters in particular reveal the administrative and military efforts that went into maintaining the state and resisting Roman domination. Life was hard, but for a little while the Jewish people experienced freedom they hadn't had in a long time. They engaged in trade, practiced their religion openly, and built a community that reflected their values and heritage. This brief period of independence left a lasting legacy, inspiring future generations to continue the struggle for a free and sovereign Jewish state. The Romans were embarrassed and angry that they were losing to the Jewish rebels. Emperor Hadrian, known for being harsh, wasn't going to let this continue. He knew this rebellion was a serious threat to Roman power. Hadrian gathered a huge army from all over the Roman Empire, led by his best general, Sextus Julius Severus. This army, maybe as big as 120,000 soldiers, had the best weapons and wanted revenge. The arrival of this massive army in Judea changed everything. The Romans had learned their lesson and planned to crush the rebellion completely. The Roman army, led by Sextus Julius Severus, was very smart and efficient. They avoided big battles and instead focused on surrounding the rebels, cutting off their supplies and defeating them one group at a time. It was a slow and painful process meant to wear down the rebels. A major battle happened near Tel Shalem. Archaeologists have found a Roman victory arch there, showing how important this Roman win was. The Romans also used soldiers from nearby areas who knew the land well. These soldiers helped find rebel groups and keep order in areas the Romans had taken back. The final battle was coming. Bar Kokhba and his remaining rebels made their last stand at the fortress of Beitar near Jerusalem. Beitar was a symbol of Jewish resistance. The Roman siege of Beitar in 135 CE was terrible. The Roman army surrounded the fortress, attacking it constantly. Inside, Bar Kokhba and his followers were running out of food and water. The walls of the fortress began to fall apart. When Beitar fell, the organized rebellion was over. The Bar Kokhba revolt was a disaster for the Jewish people. The Romans were incredibly cruel, killing many people, taking others as slaves, and destroying Jewish towns. Hundreds of thousands, maybe even more than 500,000 Jewish people died. Judea was in ruins. Hadrian, to punish the Jews even more, banned them from Jerusalem, changed the name of the area, and encouraged non-Jews to live there. The Bar Kokhba revolt was a terrible tragedy that the Jewish people would remember for a very long time. But even in defeat, it showed how strong and determined the Jewish people were, and their hope to return to their land. Even though it ended sadly, the Bar Kokhba revolt is an important part of Jewish history. This revolt, which took place between 132 and 136 CE, was a significant uprising against the Roman Empire. Led by Simon Bar Kokhba, the Jewish people fought bravely for their freedom and independence. Despite their ultimate defeat, the revolt left a lasting impact on Jewish culture and identity. For a long time, people had different opinions about Bar Kokhba. Scholars and historians have debated his legacy for centuries. Some ancient texts praise his leadership and courage, while others criticize his methods and the heavy toll the revolt took on the Jewish population. Some saw him as a hero who fought for freedom. To many, Bar Kokhba symbolized the spirit of resistance and the desire for self-determination. His leadership inspired countless stories and legends, portraying him as a fearless warrior who stood up against oppression. Others thought he was a false messiah who caused too much suffering. These critics argue that his actions led to unnecessary bloodshed and suffering, and that his claims of messianic status were misleading and ultimately harmful to the Jewish people. Today, some people see Bar Kokhba as an early Zionist, someone who, like those who created the modern state of Israel, fought for a Jewish homeland. His struggle is often compared to the efforts of modern Zionist leaders who sought to establish a safe and sovereign nation for the Jewish people. Archaeologists continue to find things from that time, like letters and the remains of forts, which help us understand the revolt better. These discoveries provide valuable insights into the daily lives of those who lived through the revolt and the strategies they used in their fight against the Romans. The story of Bar Kokhba and his followers reminds us of the terrible things that can happen when people are oppressed, but also the power of hope. Their determination and resilience continue to inspire people today, serving as a powerful reminder of the enduring human spirit in the face of adversity.